Isaiah 54 verse 17. No weapon that is formed against you will prosper, and every tongue that accuses you in judgment you will condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their vindication is from me, declares the Lord. Isaiah 54 verse 17 is one of the most quoted and beloved promises in the Bible. Many believers turn to this verse during times of hardship, opposition, criticism, and spiritual struggle. It is a powerful reminder that God's people are not abandoned when difficulties come. However, to understand this verse correctly, we must notice what it actually says and what it does not say. The verse does not promise that weapons will never be formed against God's people. In fact, it assumes they will be. Throughout history, God's servants have faced persecution, opposition, slander, rejection, and suffering. The faithful prophets were opposed. The apostles were persecuted. Even Jesus himself was hated and rejected by many. Therefore, God's promise is not the absence of attacks, but the ultimate failure of those attacks to accomplish God's purposes. The phrase, "No weapon that is formed against you will prosper," points to God's sovereign protection. People may attempt to harm believers physically, emotionally, socially, or spiritually. Satan himself seeks to discourage and deceive. Yet none of these weapons can ultimately defeat God's plan for his people. They may cause temporary pain, but they cannot rob believers of God's love, God's promises, or eternal salvation. This truth remains incredibly relevant today. Modern weapons are often not swords or spears, but words, accusations, ridicule, manipulation, false teachings, and pressure from society. Christians may face criticism for standing on biblical truth. Some experience hostility at work, school, online, or even within their own families. Others struggle with constant accusations from people around them, or even from their own conscience. This is where the second part of the verse becomes especially encouraging. Every tongue that accuses you in judgment you will condemn. God recognizes that words can wound deeply. False accusations, gossip, slander, and unjust criticism have existed in every generation. Yet God promises that lies will not have the final word. Truth belongs to Him. In His perfect justice, every false accusation will ultimately be exposed. For believers, this does not mean we spend our lives trying to win every argument or prove ourselves right. Instead, we trust God as our defender. There is great peace in knowing that our ultimate vindication comes from Him rather than from human approval. The final sentence is perhaps the most important. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their vindication is from me. Notice where the protection comes from. It is not found in human strength, intelligence, wealth, influence, or self-confidence. It comes from the Lord Himself. God is the source of the believer's security. The word heritage refers to an inheritance, something belonging to God's people because of their relationship with Him. Every believer has the privilege of belonging to the Lord and resting in His promises. Our confidence is not based on our ability to overcome every challenge, but on God's faithfulness to keep His word. In today's world, many people live with fear. They fear economic uncertainty, political instability, social rejection, health concerns, and an increasingly hostile culture. Isaiah 54:17 reminds us that God remains on His throne. Nothing catches Him by surprise. No enemy is stronger than Him. No accusation can overturn His verdict concerning those who belong to Christ. When you face opposition, remember that God's purposes cannot be stopped. When criticism comes, remember that God's opinion matters more than the opinions of people. When spiritual battles arise, remember that Christ has already secured the ultimate victory through His death and resurrection. Isaiah 54 verse 17 is not a promise of an easy life. It is a promise of God's faithful protection, righteous judgment, and ultimate victory for His servants. The attacks may come, but they will not prevail against God's eternal plan. Those who belong to the Lord can walk forward with confidence, knowing that their future rests securely in His hands. In short, the world may form weapons, but God controls the outcome. People may accuse, but God is the judge. Challenges may arise, but God's promises remain unshaken. That is the heritage of the servants of the Lord.